some ways I like my photography to be a little bit more gritty, a little bit more real, a little bit more unprocessed, as it were. Well, hello, I hope you're doing well. I thought I'd just give you a little update on what I've been up to recently. I've been busy with other things, unfortunately. I haven't been able to get out much and do as much photography as I'd like to, but I have been able to sneak out here and there and take some photographs. I've been flitting between Yorkshire and London in the last couple of weeks. I'm going back to, I'm in London here, I'm going back to Yorkshire tomorrow for a few days, but I thought I'd just show you some of the things I've been doing. So I've been taking quite a few macro photographs, but also I've been still trying to keep my hand in with the telephoto stuff. Up in Yorkshire I managed to get some pictures of a red kite in flight, which I quite enjoyed, but I'd like to really work on that and get some better pictures if I can. So one of the things that I think with wildlife composition always, especially with birds in flight, is if you can get level with them. And of course that's not easy, but if you can get level with a bird in flight, you can get some really good photographs. And I was sitting in this little valley watching this red kite flying about, and I noticed that it sort of repeated its flight path every now and again. So I thought, well, when I come back here next time, what I'll try and do is get up on the valley side a bit more and hope that the red kite will come along, and maybe I could get a better angle on the bird and hopefully get some better shots. So I'm going to give that a try in the next few days when I'm up in Yorkshire. But I just wanted to ask you a question, and it's really about another element of composition, which is I'm going to show you now a picture of a macro photograph of a marmalade hoverfly that I took the other day. And I like the picture, it's nice and sharp. I managed to get a 90 degree, the camera lens 90 degrees to the insect, which enabled quite a lot of the insect's body to be in the plane of focus, and so I'm quite pleased with that side of the photograph. But what I think is a bit distracting is the lovely bright purple flower that this marmalade hoverfly is sitting on. And compositionally, everybody would say, oh, that's no good because it's too bright and it's it draws too much attention as you look at the photograph, and it detracts attention away from the subject, which is the hoverfly. So of course, obviously in post-processing, you can reduce the saturation in the in the purples and reduce the saturation in that area, or put a mask on and reduce the saturation in that area, which will take that issue away. But my question is, should you do that? Maybe I'm just a bit old-fashioned, but I think in some ways I like my photography to be a little bit more gritty, a little bit more real, a little bit more unprocessed, as it were. And I mean, every single photograph I shoot, I process in some way. I mess about with the exposure or the contrast or whatever it is. But I like to think what I'm trying to do is recreate what I actually saw in the field. Whereas once you start getting to a point where you're kind of manipulating, like you're taking out, I mean, I don't mess up when I'm shooting outside. I don't mess around and I don't chop down trees or break branches or move things out the way to get a better shot. I try to leave the natural environment untouched and just operate within it and work around these things, and take the compromise of maybe not getting as perfect a shot as you could do if you didn't change something like that. And it's the same, I feel the same way really about post-processing. I mean, I think no photograph is perfect, but if you want to get a really stunning, maybe competition-winning or professional photographs, then you have no choice but to do that. But I personally, I don't know, I'm kind of pulled in two directions on this issue, really. How far down that road do we go of manipulating what you actually saw to make a better photograph? I mean, you could argue, and it's absolutely valid, you could argue that we're doing all that anyway by all the other techniques that we're using in photography. But I just wonder, for me, I'm kind of a bit unsure about how far you should go with all of that. So I kind of quite like my photographs as I produce them at the moment, which is just, I produce photographs which are not perfect, but I like to think as close a representation of the experience that I had and what I saw as I can. And I don't know, I feel that's kind of the way I like to go. Years ago I used to do a spot of mountain climbing, and the big issue in mountain climbing back in those days was in the 50s and 60s, people started to use more and more techniques on rock climbing and so on, which altered the rock. So people would be banging in spikes, pitons. I mean, some people used drills and things and expansion bolts, climbing up rock faces. Find very difficult or smooth rock faces, and rather than climbing as people do now, pretty much, with a non-invasive or non-destructive way of climbing, just using chalk on the fingers and little thin rubber-soled climbing boots. In the old days, people started using more and more technology because more and more technology became available, and they were bashing in bolts, which and cracking the rock and making a mess of the rock faces, basically. But with those sorts of techniques, people found that they could climb smooth and overhanging rock buttresses and things like this. Nothing was unclimbable with all this technology, and luckily there was a movement to return to the more non-destructive methods of climbing and to reject those methods. And I think that had a bit of an impact upon me. I thought, well, it isn't about what you can do. You can climb this bit of rock, but it's how you climb it. And I think in some ways maybe photography is a bit like that. It's not just about what photograph you get or what result you get, but it's also how did you get that result. And anyway, my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think, and thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.